And when it's all done, it'll be all done. But just know that this isn't all happening in one day. It's likely happening over the process of probably at least a week. Okay, so this is the best I can do, but anyway, so you'll obviously need wire strippers. Whoops, there we go. I prefer these ones that basically when you squeeze them, the stripper comes down and then it grabs the wire and it'll separate them for you, pull off the insulation. Um, doesn't look like it's quite focusing, but basically you're going to be using like 18 to 20 gauge for essentially all the wires. So you strip a little bit of the wire off and then you jam the wires together, and then this slides over it, and then that little piece in the middle of this is solder, and when you heat it with a heat gun, it melts that solder, and then it makes the connection just like these. So I don't really have a good way to do it for all the wires that I'm going to have to trace. So essentially, I'll give you an update when I'm part of the way through doing some of these. I'll show you what it looks like when I have some more. And then I'll give periodic updates. Alright, so here's where I am so far. Got all of the, what is this, like the cam controls and the injectors done, and you can see I'm just using this heat shrink that I think I mentioned earlier. Basically has solder in it instead of me having to go through, get my soldering iron out, and do those all by hand. I have the wires for the ignition cut to size, so when I build the rest of just the power and ground for the ignition, I will show that a little bit better, but here's basically a better look at kind of how I'm doing this. So you definitely want to double and triple check as you are making your connections, because you don't want to grab the wrong wire. So like right now, the next ones that I'm going to be doing: throttle position, map sensor, air temp, and then this is a 12 volt that is only on during ignition and cranking. So then the other connections we're going to have, this is going to be our cam and crank signal, and then this is for the knock sensor. So I'm getting as many of the connections as I can, hopefully all of them basically from right up here. You can see the next two that I'm doing are going to be my intake air temp and the map signal. So basically, because right now the stock ECU is going to remain in its place, and in the future, if I ever want to rebuild the harness, basically everything will be completed, and I could come back and basically relume everything and delete the stuff that I don't need. But for now, this is staying just because there are some other features that I don't want to lose by just deleting the whole thing right now. So I'm gonna work on working on this stuff. Okay, I'm not quite sure where I left off, so hopefully this makes a little bit of sense. So I've left some of this, the cheap labels that I have, and I've just kind of roughly got it held together with some electrical tape. Still have to build the harness part for the smart coils, which I will show just a real quick thing about pretty soon. One thing that I wanted to point out, so I elected to tap into the cam sensor from this side, because so this is crank and cam right here. These are shielded, and they're shielded to get the best signal possible, so I wanted to run it to a single location, because the only thing that goes to the ECU is the signal ground and the actual signal, what the the sensor is outputting, and then there is a sensor ground that is either located with these grounds or somewhere else where there's an actual sensor ground. So yeah, this looks kind of ugly, but I'll get it taped up a little bit, and then we'll put the cover back on here, and then I'll have the main cover over this, so most of it's going to be hidden. And then for my crank sensor, it was the same thing. There was only 2 wires on the ECU. So what I did was I bought this 3-pin. It's like an EV1 style, but Hyundai has a different kind of keyways on it, so I had to cut off that bottom keyway and basically just made like an adapter harness, so that way I can just plug it in that way, and then if I ever need to replace the crank sensor or anything like that, the sensor can be replaced independently. And then the shielded wires are shielded all the way up there, so hopefully that gives me a good signal. And then one of the other things I did for when I'm luming the whole thing is I bought this Tessa tape, and it's basically this exact same fabric style, not the exact same, but very close to what OEM uses. So once I have this mostly figured out, I'll probably unbolt a few things and like kind of run the harness under some things, so it's not going to be super clean, but if you want to do it, you can make it as clean as you want to do it. I just want to do something that functions. But it'll all be taped up, and then all the excess will get pulled into the cabin, and then I'll tape it as best I can in the cabin, but I'm not a huge fan of wiring, so try to limit how much work I'm actually doing on that. Oh, and then there's the signal wires here for the wastegate solenoid. And then what I decided to do is off of my boost and vacuum manifold here, there's one of these lines that I just cut a hole and I actually ran it through here. I know there's one over here, but I already have some stuff for my gauges running through there, so I have just a silicone tube that's running into the cabin, and I will show that when I'm actually plugging in the ECU, how I have that in there. That kind of shows there's the seal in that one plug. That was everything. All 4 of them. Connectors. Oh. So that is where I did my fuse tap. Obviously there are no fuses in there, but it is the same fuse for the OEM coils, so I'm just thinking that that should be fine, especially since I still have the stock ECU. in the car because we're still using that for some of the things. So that is coil packs wired, everything else is wired up. Now we are on to building a base map.